Hello there. Welcome in. Thursday edition of the show. Glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app, of course, is sponsored by our friends at Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Well-Being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get you at 719-247-1313. You can call or text in those thoughts that way, or I am perpetually on Twitter at Gingerly Tweets. No show yesterday. Appreciate your patience with me. But now I'm back. I'm ready to roll. So let's start here with the mystery that has now been solved. A post on Instagram from Nikola Jokic's European agent. And I think that's an important distinction because he has an American agent. It just so happens his American agent is the same American agent as Jamal Murray, but not the same American agent as Michael Porter Jr., which may tell you a little something about where the Nuggets' heads were at in terms of who they were looking to potentially trade. But that's neither here nor there necessarily. I just think it's important that you know that. And I think it did turn out to be significant with the story. So anyway, the guy is putting on Instagram, he and Maverick Carter, who is LeBron James's business guy, and LeBron on a yacht with the caption of the summer of 2025 is a great time to lay big plans for the fall of 2026. And given LeBron James's current contract situation, people were starting to connect some dots. LeBron James is going to be a free agent going into the fall of 2026. And this is someone who has a close personal relationship with Nikola Jokic that is saying these things. But that's not what it's about. Unfortunately or fortunately, which we will get into here momentarily, depending on the way you look at it. What this is about is the fact that those three gentlemen in that picture, and I would not be shocked if Nikola Jokic is part of this, they want to create a European basketball league. And the best that I can surmise, given some of the details that have come out over the last 24 hours, is this is akin to what the unrivaled league is for the WNBA. It is a league that the players in Unrivaled is where WNBA players have a stake in it. WNBA players started it. They have ownership stake in it. They play in it. This is going to be a little bit less than that. I don't think you will see LeBron James or Nikola Jokic playing in it. But the main similarity is that NBA players, professional basketball players, will have a stake in it. This is another money-making venture for the LeBron James empire. And he might be bringing Nikola Jokic along for the ride. Now, the NBA has eyes on creating their own league. Supposedly, this is not a conflict, much like Unrivaled in the WNBA. They don't compete with each other. So we'll see where that goes. I would say the reality did not sync up with the fantasy that many people had in their heads. Whether they wanted that caption to mean what it mean and they were all about it, or not, it's still the idea of LeBron James's next team is far more interesting than some second-rate European league that NBA players are going to have a stake in. But that's what it was. That's what all that was about. So my question is not let's talk about this European league. When you saw that, did you get a little bit amped up? Because we have talked about before the idea of LeBron James being on the Denver Nuggets. And I talked about when he was a free agent the last time. But when we've talked about it more recently, it's been, who would you give up? Would you give up Porter? Would you give up Murray? Would you give up this? Would you give up that? LeBron James is going to be a free agent in the summer. That's what he's scheduled to be. If you could just add LeBron James to the Denver Nuggets by only paying him X number of dollars, would you do it? Because I do think it changes the conversation a little bit. Because I don't understand, but I understand. I don't understand the idea that if you don't have to give up Nikola Jokic, and I can understand to a lesser extent Aaron Gordon, but to me, I don't understand why you wouldn't give up anything else on the Denver Nuggets for LeBron James. But fine, you have an affinity. You don't want to give up Jamal Murray. You don't want to give up, maybe you're very excited about Cam Johnson. You don't want to give him up, or Christian Brown, whatever the case may be. Now you just get him. Now you just add him. Sure, some other roster moves may have to be made, but you're not giving up a core member of the Denver Nuggets to get LeBron James. Doesn't that change it a little bit? Is there so much LeBron derangement syndrome that people cannot see how this would be a massive win for the Denver Nuggets, even at 41 years old, to get LeBron James? Maybe he falls off a cliff this year for the LA Lakers. I doubt it. But you tell me for 1 year, the Nuggets get LeBron James, and this isn't, even though as a player, he is still competing at a high level. What has happened with the LA Lakers, you have seen now an organization that owes LeBron James everything, basically telling him, yeah, you're going to sit in the back seat because we have this Luka guy now, and he's who we care about more than you. I mean, that's essential. It sounds harsh, but that's essentially what the Lakers have told LeBron James. The power that you have in this organization is greatly diminished. We have, through no achievement of our own, only by the grace of Nico Harrison, do we have this ability to tell you to go ahead and just play out your contract and be good. But they have Luka. And they have clearly told LeBron that he is their priority. So this idea that you would be getting a LeBron James who at this stage in his career and at this age is going to be able, I mean, the thing that maybe would be out there is that you may have to take a flyer on Bryce James, his younger son. You may have to do the thing that the Lakers did, maybe. Is that for a team? Is that really? And I don't even know that that would be a must for LeBron James to sign there. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But you don't have to give up anything to get him. And I don't think he's going to immediately come in and start pointing out the guys on the team that he wants traded. He's just not there in his career anymore. And if the Lakers aren't willing to bend the knee to him anymore, then why would a team that, regardless of what happens this year, the Nuggets are certainly title contenders this year and next year. Why would that organization bend the knee? And actually, you could phrase it this way. If you're saying that if LeBron James made a contingent of him signing with any team, be it the Nuggets or anybody else, that they have to take Bryce Drew, if you want to say no to that, then okay. If that's the I don't want LeBron because this, then I can, to an extent, understand that argument. That's fine. But this idea that LeBron James is going to come in and terraform the Denver Nuggets and make them trade all of these players, it's like he can't even do that anymore with the Lakers. The Lakers are done doing that. And when it comes to winning a title, LeBron James would need the Nuggets more than the Nuggets need LeBron James. And you could probably say that about a few teams in the NBA that LeBron James may be linked to between now and next summer. So I just think we're at a different stage with LeBron. And if you take away the idea that you have to consummate a trade, and this is just him just signing a free agent contract, I think it changes it. And I think then it opens up okay, yeah, LeBron James would be good on the Denver Nuggets. I would take that. I don't want to give up any of these Nuggets players that I have a great affinity for. But if LeBron James sees what the Nuggets are doing and wants to team up for one last hurrah, then I think enough people who are like, no, I don't want LeBron, would go, yeah, you know what? Okay. But you could correct me if I'm wrong. If you're so anti-LeBron James that even in a free agent deal situation, you wouldn't want him, let me know. 719-247-1313. But all that being said, this reminds me, even to the fact that it's happening on a boat. The last time there was a real thought that the Denver Nuggets would land LeBron James, it was Josh Kroenke and LeBron James on a boat. And that didn't work out. You could say that the number of teams that would want LeBron are fewer. The Nuggets are legitimate title contenders now, but I don't see somebody who is as image conscious as LeBron James is, and as fixated on his legacy as LeBron James is. I just don't think that for 1 year, even though there was a guy that played quarterback for the Colts that willingly did that, but and it could be the same situation. The Lakers should be maybe like, thanks for the memories, but we're not re-signing you. They could very well say that. So LeBron could be in the same situation Peyton Manning is in. But if it's a free agent deal, because that opens up so many other possibilities, why wouldn't he go to Cleveland? The reason why Cleveland was never really a serious thought for LeBron James when we were talking about him possibly being traded was because cap-wise, it was impossible. It was impossible. You couldn't make it happen. You couldn't put any trade into the trade machine and make it work. The Nuggets, you could make it work because Jamal Murray now is being paid a ton of money. But if LeBron James is just free and clear to go wherever he wants, if the Lakers don't want him back, and he could sign for any number he wants, why wouldn't it be Cleveland? Why wouldn't he finish where he started? But if he's really going to open this thing up after this year is over and really look around and winning a title or making another run to a title, not that Cleveland's a bad landing spot for that, but if he's really just looking for one last push to win a championship, and that's always, Denver makes a lot of sense. And he would help. Not saying that the Nuggets have to have him to win a title, but it wouldn't hurt because I think that's been the big pushback. There's this idea that getting LeBron James would somehow hurt the Denver Nuggets, either because he would seek a bunch of power within the organization to be the GM, or it would cost the Nuggets a player that makes them who they are. Most notably a Jamal Murray. But for just adding him to the mix with what they already have, I have a hard time figuring out a reason why the answer would be no to that. 719-247-1313. More on Nikola Jokic, one of his actual former teammates, not just fantasy future teammates, one of his past teammates, giving some more ammunition to those who say Nikola Jokic, you know what? He just doesn't care. We'll get into that as we move throughout the show, and much Broncos conversation as well. You're listening to Extra Sports 1300. Riot Fest coming to Chicago this fall, September to be exact. 3 days of live music from over 90 artists featuring headlining sets from Green Day, Blink-182, Weezer, Jack White, and more. And we're hooking up one winner with a VIP trip for two, including flights, hotel, 3-day VIP tickets to Riot Fest, plus $200 to raid the merch store. All you need to do is to enter is text the national keyword HEROES. That's HEROES to 95819. Make sure you keep listening all day tomorrow and throughout this evening for more national keywords. And if you want the complete contest rules, you could go to extrasports1300.com. Did you get your half-price Broncos tickets today? 10 a.m. this morning. This is a part of the deal between the Broncos and Denver, is that they will offer a limited number of tickets to each home game for the discounted price of 50% off. I did. No, actually, I tried. I logged on at 10 a.m. looking for, of course, the November game between the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. One of my two sons is a Chiefs fan, so I thought that was a good time. You know, if I could get the tickets 50% off, which I understand sounds like I have a price limit on my children, and I do. And I'm not afraid to admit it. I can be a thrifty dad sometimes. So I looked into it, and all that I could find once I got through the queue was single tickets. Quite a few single tickets, but only single tickets. And of course, I wouldn't leave my other son. We would go together. So you can understand my level of disappointment that by the time I got through, that there were only single tickets available. So as you might imagine, yeah, I don't know what my kids are going to do that day. I know what I'm doing that day. They got to fend for themselves. They got to figure out something else. Go find your own activity to do. I tried to get 3 tickets. I went in with every intention of getting 3 tickets to the Broncos Chiefs game. They only offered me 1. They'll be fine though. I mean, they know how to microwave things. Like, they'll be all right. No, I did not end up. I'm going to just, if I'm going to take them to the game, I will pay face value, full price for all 3 of us to go. Which means we're not going to that game. Which kind of leads me into my question. And by the way, I got out of that queue, went into the Cowboys queue to try and get. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll take my brother, who's a Cowboys fan. I'll take him foolishly, because if I couldn't even accomplish anything going through the Chiefs queue, why in the world would a team that doesn't normally come to Mile High and is more popular in many ways than the Kansas City Chiefs are, why in the world would I think that anything other than single tickets would be available? And when I got there, there were none tickets available. So I struck out. The only thing I could do is get a single ticket to Chiefs game, which I did not do. But it kind of leads me into my question, because us down here, whether you're a Broncos fan or not, maybe at some point you have a desire to go up to Empower Field and check out a game. Maybe it's because your favorite team is the Denver Broncos. Maybe it's because the Broncos are playing your favorite team. But I'm curious, with the extra effort that most of you, if you're listening, chances are you're in the greater Colorado Springs area. We do reach beyond that, but the bulk of our audience obviously resides in Colorado Springs. So would you, if you did not, first of all, did you get any tickets from the sale today? That's my first question. But my second question is, would that be the only way that you would go up to a Broncos game? Is if your tickets were half off? Because if you look at it from my perspective, few different things. One, the Chiefs come through Denver every year. So there is literally always next year. For me, for my brother, there's not. It's going to be like, 4 years till the Cowboys are even on the schedule again. So I could say, next year. Also, the timing of the last Broncos game that I went to at Empower Field, I took my dad. And it happened to be, and this will tell you how long ago it was. It was Patrick Mahomes' first start. Last game of the season, Broncos-Chiefs. Chiefs had everything wrapped up. Broncos were going nowhere. It was Mahomes being thrown in there for one game. Alex Smith was still the starter. Mahomes for one game against Paxton Lynch. And I took my dad to that game. Obviously, it was even later in the year than November. But it was a great time because I was spending time with my dad and repaying him for something that he did for me, which was bring me to Broncos Chiefs games at at the risk of bodily harm for himself. Because it wouldn't be me. I'm a kid, even decked out in Chiefs gear. No one's going to come after me. They're going to go after my dad and say, how did you fail so miserably in raising your child? And why are you bringing him here into our sacred building? So, but he did it anyway. And so I wanted to repay him for that. Did. We went. So it was great because I was spending time with my dad. It was terrible because of literally everything else. Getting to the stadium, sitting in the stadium, it was freezing. It was miserable. I was getting I got anxiety because we were so high up in the stadium. So from that point on, I'm like, it takes a special set of circumstances. If the Chiefs were visiting week 1, which I know would never happen, but let's say it did, I'd be all over that. Be all over it. Because some of that stuff I don't have to worry about. You know what? Getting to the stadium, it's fine. It's kind of a pain. It gets me ready for going to Nuggets and Avs games in the future because that's going to be a tremendous pain for anyone who's not in the lower downtown area. So I can deal with, the planes, trains, and automobiles that it may take to get there. Sitting high up is a real issue for me, but I can power through. But if it's 0 degrees on top of it, I can't. Can't do it. But at 50 plus, no, I guess the big kicker would be at full price. Doing all of that at full price, no, sorry. But Half price, maybe I will, even for a late November afternoon. So there are a lot of things in summation that need to go right for me to bring my sons to a Broncos game. Opponent, price, time of year, where we sit, it's a whole thing. So you can imagine why I haven't taken them to any games. They've gone to their fair share of Avs and Nuggets, and so it's not like I don't take them anywhere. But I am legitimately curious. Maybe more so if you're using the Broncos essentially in the way that everybody uses the Rockies. Like, I'm not here to see you. Now, because of my job, I am there to see the Broncos as much as I'm there to see the Chiefs in many ways, just for different reasons. But you be using the Broncos in the way that everybody uses the Rockies. Like, I'm not here for you. I'm here because of who you're playing. But a Rockies ticket, little bit cheaper than a Broncos ticket. So let me know, did you get in? Because there were so many people for every game. Even the Jags game, which I guess I say that Travis Hunter is playing. So increased interest in that game, certainly. But like it was crazy town. The amount of people who were in the queue for every single Broncos home game. And I fully understand that part of the reason is this team's not terrible anymore. So braving all of the things I just listed, a little bit easier to do when you're seeing a better product on the field. But I hadn't heard of anybody that got through, so that's why I figured I'd throw it out there. And if you are a fan of a team not named the Denver Broncos, are you willing to pay face value to bring your whole team, team? They're your team, your whole family, or bring your buddies or whatever the case may be, pay full price to go and watch your team play in Denver. Because a different price point than going to an Avs game, even, or a Nuggets or a Rockies game. 719-24-7-1313. Speaking of going to games, forget 50% off. How about 100% off? A 4-pack of tickets to see the Switchbacks take on Lexington SC tomorrow night. Coming up next on Extra Sports 1300.
coming at us in transition and it looked dangerous. So being mindful of both, they obviously got great players, good staff. Like they have a good team, but I do feel like, especially at home, with the game that we've played, knowing that in the back of our mind, like we have that sense of revenge.
Appreciate the time. Best of luck against Lexington and bon anniversaire.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, boss. Good to see you.
Good to see you. That is Switchbacks midfielder Quincy Huerman enduring my terrible French earlier today out at training. And he's one of those players that we've talked about, Roland and I, on broadcasts about, when you let Ronaldo Damas go, and he was such a big part of what they did in terms of scoring goals. They were expecting some players to step up. And quite frankly, the Switchbacks just didn't get enough of that in the first half of the season. And Quincy's not alone, but it's Quincy, it's Juan Tejada. Of course, they had a player that was contributing in Justin Dillon, and then an unforeseen circumstance takes him away from the club. So there has been some best laid plans going into the year that haven't quite worked out. But now, Quincy mentions he sets up Marco for the goal against Birmingham. He scores the 2 against Texoma. Juan Tejada has popped up with a goal. You're just waiting. I think the mode that you're in, if you're a Switchbacks fan, is, okay, is this it? Is this where this team pops? And against Texoma, and in all honesty, they should put up a dominant performance. But there's no substitute. I don't care who you're playing, to see the ball go into the back of the net. It's important, no matter who you're going up against. So the amount of goals that the Switchbacks have scored in the last couple of matches gives them confidence, reinforces some of the things that James Chambers has been preaching on the training ground, and hopefully we see it come to fruition tomorrow night. Quincy doesn't label this team as desperate, but they're maybe a better. There's a lot of intent with this team right now. Urgent may be the better word for that. There's urgency around this team right now, and you should see that come out tomorrow night against Lexington SC. Grady is the winner of the 4-pack of tickets to see. Good to hear from you, Grady. But he has won the tickets, being texter number 13. More tickets to give away as the broadcast goes on today. The show goes on. Coming up in a little bit. In the meantime, I was asking about this 50% off sale that the Broncos had at 10 a.m. this morning. Clearly, word got around because every single game that you tried to get into, you had over 1,000 people in front of you in the queue. So my question is, especially for those of you who are not Broncos fans, have you gone to games? Have you gone to games paying full price? Or were you like me trying to save a few bucks to go and see your favorite team play against the Denver Broncos? This coming in from the 719. I'm a Steelers fan, and I've been offered multiple times to go watch the Steelers play the Broncos for free, and I've declined every time. Attending an NFL game doesn't seem fun to me, which brings up, I think it goes to what I was talking about, but also brings up a bigger point. Some of the things like getting to the game, the weather, all that kind of stuff, like you don't deal with that at every NFL stadium. Right? So some of the things that I'm not looking forward to when it comes to going to a Broncos game, maybe I don't deal with that in Miami. Or I don't deal with some of the transportation problems in another NFL city. But the texture brings up a bigger point that the NFL, I don't know if they're struggling with this. I don't know if they struggle with anything really. But you have seen certainly the NFL putting more and more, investing more and more in the television side of things and getting a lot of money for it, because there is a sentiment that, we could take this in another direction. Is the NFL the worst sport to watch in a stadium? I think the answer is yes. No matter how enjoyable you find it to be, going to a baseball, basketball, hockey game better than going to an NFL game. Now, how rabid we are as fans for our teams, we push through. If there were some of the issues, let's say that the Avs played outside all the time, I could imagine why that would be an impediment for a lot of people. But you're battling the elements. You're battling the biggest crowds that are going to go to any of these sporting events. The location of the current stadium, which the Broncos are looking at remedying. But a lot of those things you encounter everywhere. And I do think that the NFL is, and I've gone to games at Arrowhead. I've been to Old Cowboys Stadium. I've been to a few NFL stadiums. There are some that are more enjoyable than others, but they're still a lesser experience than if I were to go to a Royals game in Kansas City or a Mavericks game in Dallas. The NFL, to me, it's like NHL, you really have to watch live. You really have to go live and in person. That's the best experience you're going to have, and it's superior to what's on the television. Flip-flopping it is what the NFL is. Amazingly enjoyable sitting on your couch. Going to a game, not as fun. I get what the texter's saying there. Take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up next, early reports out of Broncos camp. The defense is getting the better of the offense, which really shouldn't be a surprise. Welcome in. Hope you're having a great Thursday and appreciate you taking time out of it to join me. Whether you're listening to the show on air, online, or through the app, or you're watching the show on Facebook, X, Instagram, or YouTube at XTRA Sports 1300. Jessica Mendoza makes her triumphant return to the program coming up in just a little bit. She's been up at Broncos camp for KKTV 11. So get her perspective on what's been going on up there. And what I want to ask her right out of the gate is whether the impression that she has gotten is that the defense is getting not just the better of the offense, but at times has looked dominating over the Broncos offense, because there are reports coming out of Broncos camp that has been the case. That the offense in general, not to say they haven't had their moments, but in general, the defense has overpowered the Broncos offense. If that is true, it should not come as a surprise. In fact, the reverse would be the surprise. If everything I have heard coming out of Broncos camp was, wow, Bo Nix is really torching this defense, that would be surprising. And honestly, a little bit worrying if you're a Broncos fan. I mean, think about it. For a second, you'd be like, wow, great on Bo Nix. But then you would be like, wait a minute. This Broncos defense is supposed to be the best in the league. And even the most wildest imaginations can't possibly think that Bo Nix in training camp of year 2 is so good that he would torch what many people believe, including me, that the Broncos defense is one of the best in the league. So that would actually be an indictment of the Broncos defense as much as it is, making you feel great about what Bo Nix is going to be capable of this season. But that's, from what I have heard, that's not been the case. The defense has been kind of running things up there. Which, if you look around the NFL, you're going to get a lot of those kind of reports. The defense is usually, unless you have a garbage defense, which there are a few, but unless you're a garbage defense, you're going to look pretty good, because at this time of year, defenses tend to be further along than offenses. Just across the board, whether you have a rookie quarterback, second-year guy, or, it's Patrick Mahomes. There are going to be enough times that the defense looks better than the offense. But we're not just talking about the defense being a little bit ahead of the offense. We're talking about the defense at times dominating the Broncos offense. But that shouldn't be surprising either. Let's just line them up, shall we? You have Pat Surtain on Cortland Sutton. You have Riley Moss on Devon Vele. You have Jahdae Barron on Marvin Mims. You have Nick Bonito and Zach Allen and Jonathan Cooper and Dre Greenlaw going up against, yes, a very good Broncos offensive line, but you can't block them all. We know Vance loves to bring the pressure. And then it's, Bo Nix and RJ Harvey and Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, just line it up player for player. Is it that surprising? This is going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL this year. And the Broncos offense is, how do I put this? Not going to be one of the best offenses in the NFL. They're just not going to be. Wasn't last year. The Broncos defense is much better than the Broncos offense. I don't know who needs to hear that, but it's true. But there is a level of concern that you can have in such a fact. Because coming up this season, Bo Nix and the Broncos offense will face 7 of the top 11 defenses in the NFL from last year. 2 of those 11, or 2 of those 7, and 2 of those 11, coincidentally, they play twice in Kansas City and the Chargers. So when you hear people say the Broncos' schedule is tougher, on the whole, it's really not. But it is in a certain way. And this is the way that it is. Even week 1, not that I am sitting here expecting the Denver Broncos to lose week 1 against Tennessee, but everyone's so focused on what the Broncos defense is going to do to Cam Ward, and I understand that, and I'm with you. I think that the Broncos are going to do what you think they're going to do against Cam Ward in week 1. But the Tennessee Titans were one of the best defenses in the NFL last year. It's just that they were so horrifically terrible on the offensive side with Will Levis that it didn't translate to anything. So part of the reason why I'm saying that I think Bo Nix isn't going to look as good as he did the last time you saw him on an NFL field is partially this fact. Seven of the top 11 defenses in the NFL last year are on the Broncos schedule. And this is the weaker of the two sides of the football for the Denver Broncos. Now, conversely, and this is where, in terms of the schedule overall, it kind of balances itself out. The Broncos are only facing 4 of the top 11 offenses from a year ago. So you can take what I'm saying and choose to glom on to one aspect or another. But the Broncos' schedule, in addition to how second-year quarterbacks typically do either plateau or maybe take a slight step back as defenses catch up, as there's more film, as especially with many teams that had a rookie quarterback that succeed under that rookie quarterback, they're not sneaking up on anyone anymore. The Broncos have the attention and respect of the National Football League. But there's a downside to that. You're going to get everyone's best shot. So you could look at it and say, well, yeah, maybe I should lower my expectation around Bo Nix. But you could look at it the other way and go, well, the defense is going to feast against this schedule. And I think you're right. I think you're right on both accounts. The Denver Broncos, like they did for much of last year, it's got to be the defense. Bo Nix and this offense aren't ready. They're not talented enough. They're not developed enough if you want to be a little bit more, apologetic to them. They're still young at the skill positions, if nothing else. If you don't doubt the talent, doubt the experience level. If the Broncos are going to get back to where they were last year, they need one of the best defenses in the NFL. And where they potentially take a step forward is if Bo Nix does. And that's why I've looked at this team and I say 9-8 because I believe very much in their defense. And I think it could get them about where they were last year. But in order for them to be better than they were a year ago, I have to put that on the shoulders of Bo Nix and this offense, and I'm not ready to do that. Seven of the top 11 defenses, over half of the Broncos' schedule, will be going up against some of the elite defenses in the NFL. But they will only face 4 of the top 11 offenses. Now, there's some wiggle room for improvement, and we talk about this every year, right? And it's part of the flaw of doing the strength of schedule thing. Because the strength of schedule is based on last year. What I'm talking about, largely based on last year, and I'll admit that. But how different do you think that will be? Right? How many of the defenses that were in the top 11, as I mentioned, do you expect to fall out of that? 1, 2, maybe. Still a good chunk of the year that the Broncos are going up against really good defenses. And you could easily do that on the other side. Two teams that I think you can pencil in right now offensively to be better than they were a year ago. Dallas and Kansas City. Both of those offenses are going to be better than they were a year ago. How much better? That remains to be seen. But they're going to be better. Even though there are still questions that linger about the wide receiving core of the Kansas City Chiefs, it's still fewer questions than they had last year. And with Dallas, that's an even easier case to make because they'll have Dak. So you could do it either, but I think if you're going to go down that road, you can really only move out a couple of teams. The landscape of the NFL is not drastically changed after the draft and free agency. You would agree with me on that, yes? Yeah, there are some teams that maybe aren't going to be as good as they were last year. There are teams that are going to be better than they were a year ago. But we're really only talking about a few teams. Right? Chiefs are the Chiefs. Ravens are the Ravens. Bills are the Bills. Eagles are the Eagles. Detroit's still going to be a really good team. I mean, the landscape has not drastically changed. So, yeah, maybe a team, especially one that's maybe 9, 10, 11, could become 12, 13, 14. Still a pretty good defense, but not upper echelon. And same with the offenses. Maybe there are a couple of offenses that are going to be much improved from the year before. Dallas, Kansas City. But maybe one of those teams that was elite last year offensively drops off. So I think that's going to, those numbers that I throw out, I think they're going to hold. The general takeaway of the Broncos are going up against a schedule featuring very good defenses is going to hold up through the season. Just as the notion that the Broncos aren't going to necessarily go up against a gauntlet of offensive juggernauts is probably going to hold up. You're going to have to deal with Saquon. You're going to deal with Mahomes twice a year. You're going to deal with Burrow again. Dak and the Cowboys. But you still got a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. You got Russell Wilson or a rookie quarterback in Jackson Dart. The Raiders, I think, will be improved offensively, but not night and day. I don't think the Raiders are going to be an elite offensive team, but they'll be a little bit better. Chargers, I probably about the same. The defenses on the Broncos schedule pose more problems than the offenses, which just further emboldens me to say that I think that the Broncos are going to have one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL. And I think that the offense is, and particularly Bo Nix, slight step back this year. Get your take at 719-247-1313. As promised, Jessica Mendoza, KKTV 11, will join me. Is she seeing a Broncos defense that at times is dominating Bo Nix in the offense? That and other camp tales from Jessica next on Extra Sports 1300. Broncos training camp, pads and all, well underway up in Denver. Joining me now to discuss what she has seen so far, sports anchor from KKTV 11. She is Jessica Mendoza. Jessica, it's been a little bit. How you been?
Yeah, it's been way too long. I've been missing coming on this show, but I'm still doing good and excited to be back with you, Ryan.
You don't have to lie, but but I appreciate the sentiment nonetheless. My last sentiment, because of what I have heard, but I wanted to bring you on to either confirm or deny this. From what you have seen, is the Broncos defense at times dominating the Broncos offense?
Absolutely. And I actually think a lot of the offensive players would flat out agree with that. And I feel like they would be completely honest with just how tough this defense is making it. On Bo Nix, on the running backs, on the offensive line. This defense is working that offense. And we really got to see it the best yesterday. I'm sure you've heard that was the most physical spirited day of camp we've had so far. So that was when it really came into play. But every day, before that, it's just been pretty obvious that they're making things really hard on this offense. And so far, the motto that I've really picked up on is iron sharpening iron. And it definitely feels like the defense is just kind of the one that's getting the most sharp, if that makes sense. Is that the right way to say it, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying, because that's kind of the next question, right? Is this ultimately making the offense better, or is this disheartening them?
I don't think it's disheartening them. I think that they are seeing this as, a good challenge and a motivation, and knowing that this isn't just a regular defense that they're going up against every day. They know that this has the potential to be the best defense in the NFL this season. So I think that it's making them, they realize that this is not just an average defense, and this is really just making them better. And hopefully when they go out there against Tennessee in week 1, they're going to realize, hey, this is nothing compared to the guys that we've been going up against in training camp and, all these weeks leading up. So obviously I think that's the goal. That's the hope. Personally, I'm not really concerned about the offense at all. I think it's more so encouraging to see what the defense is bringing.
Is there someone on the offensive side that, from what you have seen, has been able to maybe fare better against the Broncos defense than maybe some others?
Yeah, so first name that popped into my head is definitely Troy Franklin. He's been getting talked about a lot lately. I think it was first day in pads. They were on the field closest to us practicing, and I can still picture it in my head. I mean, he went up and caught a pass with 2 guys on him. He just elevated up above these defenders. It was beautiful. Brought it down for probably a gain of 30 yards if I could guess and remember correctly. But I think he's really impressive because we had so many concerns about him previously in last year. Those drop passes, looking a little bit sluggish, getting off the line. But he just looks not necessarily different physically, but his spirit looks different out there. And I wonder if it has maybe anything to do with his number change. But as far as the run game, I'm excited just about that competition because I think we got some fresh new faces in there. I think that J.K. Dobbins and the potential of, how he's going to push Audric Estime and how Audric Estime is going to push J.K. Dobbins. I think all of that's really exciting. So I would say those 3 names are the big ones on offense that are looking the best to me out there, like you said, against a really good defensive unit day in and day out.
It's interesting that you bring up Dobbins vis-a-vis Audric Estime, because that whole running back room has been very much talked about. And I think some people may look at, J.K. Dobbins versus R.J. Harvey. Maybe I'm making an assumption here that I shouldn't be, so you could correct me. Does it feel like what R.J. Harvey is going to be, he's going to be? They're maybe not prioritizing him, but what his role is will be his role, whereas somebody like Audric Estime, who we heard a lot about going into the offseason, is now maybe facing a little bit more of an uphill battle to get touches.
No, and I think it's way too early to say. I think I might have just I probably should have mentioned RJ Harvey in that, but it's not that he's not, exciting me or that he's not, doing anything that's impressive in camp so far. But I think those were just the two names that have kind of stood out so far. As far as roles go, I know that was something that Sean Payton was asked about last week, and he was very quick to be like, it's way too early to start talking about, I know you guys are noticing who's taking snaps at 1 and who's taking snaps at 2, but don't be counting reps out here. Like, definitely don't be doing that yet. So I think really like some of these joint practices will be big. We have that one coming up next week, preseason. I think that's when we're really going to start to be able to, pick apart those position battles and see who's really standing out and, who's getting more reps. But for right now, I would just say, RJ Harvey is very exciting for sure. He looks straight out there. He looks explosive. He looks fast. But yeah, I guess he's just one of those like kind of unproven guys, unproven rookies that I'm excited to see in like real game action coming up.
Yeah. And I guess the way I was putting it is more so because I talked about this yesterday with the, what Garrett Bowles said the other day about trying to get out to the outside run game a little bit more. And just the fact that they drafted Harvey and brought in J.K. Dobbins. And I'm with you, and what you're saying is 100% right about it's too early, but I'm just looking at some things from a personnel side, from a scheme side, that's making me feel like maybe Audric Estime isn't going to be as big of a piece of this Broncos offense as maybe Sean Payton maybe even thought he was going to be going into the offseason.
Yeah, I know, because I think that was a lot of we were kind of, at least for me, I was picturing him kind of where that J.K. Dobbins role might be right now. And now that they have him there, that is a good point is, where does he fit in? And we haven't heard from him yet. I would love to talk to him and just see like how he's feeling, if he's feeling the pressure, where he feels like he fits into this running backs room. I don't know if we'll get the chance to talk to him anytime soon. But he doesn't look panicked out there. It's not like he's rushing up to, be taking the first snaps or, getting those first reps in or anything like that. So I don't know what that means or if that says much, but I would say he's just kind of taking it as business as usual. And just another reason why I'm excited to see them in that first preseason game coming up.
Jessica Mendoza, my guest, KKTV 11 Sports. With Courtland Sutton signing his extension, I don't think that he's an elite wide. I don't think we look at Courtland Sutton in the way we looked at Demaryius Thomas, just as a Broncos to Broncos, comparison in terms of where Demaryius Thomas was amongst his peers versus Courtland Sutton. But there's just this feeling with him, and you're up there and you're around him and around this team. It's almost like an Aaron Gordon-esque vibe, if you will, around Courtland Sutton. Like maybe he's not the most important player, maybe he's not the best player, maybe he's not this or that, but there's just this affinity around him that made it so the celebration of his contract extension was like greater than maybe I expected. I mean, what is that dynamic like when you're up there when it comes to Courtland Sutton?
Yeah, I think it's you mentioned Demaryius. I think it's different, when you talk about like the success that the teams have had, right? And I think guys like Courtland Sutton and Garrett Bowles, they've stuck around through so much, right? Like they have been through how many coaches, how many quarterbacks, and those two guys are still here and they've been solid. I mean, Garrett Bowles has had his up and downs, and, I don't think Courtland Sutton is, I think he's also had his moments, where we all wish he was this or that or a little bit better. But overall, I think it is kind of like that nostalgic piece to this Broncos team because so much has changed since Sean Payton has come in, for better or for worse. And so it's like that true Denver Bronco who still holds those, he has that leftover Justin Simmons in him, right? That leadership quality. And so I think people are excited to still have that around and still have that piece of, yes, the Denver Broncos were not so great all these years that he was here, but he stuck around. He cares about this community. He cares about this team. And, you know, I have always gotten the feeling that he's been very positive going into every season. You know, he didn't go into that second season with Russell Wilson like, oh, yeah, like
we did.
Gonna be... Yeah, exactly. Like, he stayed so optimistic. So I think people have really liked that about him for the most part. And yeah, I do think that it was a pretty team-friendly deal overall.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely helps as well.
What are your impressions of what a Joker looks like with Evan Ingram? What has he been doing? Where has Sean Payton been lining him up?
Yeah. So I think what the Joker is going to end up looking like is, well, I think he really knows the importance of being a good pass blocker and just in the blocking game. I think he understands the importance of that. But also being able to break away for a large gain, some big catches, hopefully lots of touchdowns. I think he likes that exciting part of being involved in the offense and being a weapon for Bo Nix. But he's also not so tuned into that to thinking that that's his only role. And of course, that's a tight end, but I think he's really strong in both of those categories. And I think they have a really good connection already. I think something that people aren't talking about enough is, you show up a little bit early to practice. Bo Nix is out there getting his shoulder warmed up, doing his exercises. And a lot of times Evan Ingram is standing right next to him talking, both of them with their helmets off, just laughing, hanging out, talking about different plays. And so I think that them building that connection will also be huge because we never saw that with, Adam Troutman or Lucas Kroll last season. They were pretty separated. So I also think Evan Ingram's experience being in Jacksonville, I think that also and his personality, I think that's going to be really huge when it goes into that Joker role. And I think Sean Payton saw that too. I think he was really attracted to his work ethic and his personality, as cheesy as that might sound.
Well, and look, we can talk about there's this feeling like the Broncos have arrived. And I think that the subheading there is that Sean Payton is still trying to, maybe it's not building the culture, maybe it's fostering the culture, maintaining the culture, but we're just 3 years in. I mean, we're going into year 3 here. So to take the Broncos from what they were in every aspect, not just wins and losses, but also what they were behind the scenes, to your point about the culture, is like that job's not done yet. It's not like the Broncos are filled with, all these guys that Sean Payton, I'm sure there's a lot of tinkering still left to be done on this roster after this season and maybe after the next.
Yeah, I thought it was cool that Adam Troutman today said the practice they had yesterday that I was just saying was, the most real football we've seen from camp so far. He said that was the best practice he's had since being in Denver. And so I think that says something, like the best practice, not the best training camp practice, like the best practice period. So like they are at that point this early on in the season. That's extremely good to hear. And Sean Payton always says, he keeps saying we can't just pick up where we left off last season. And yes, that's true to some degree, but they also have a really good amount of players. I think the top in the NFL, the most amount of players returning from last year's roster. So in a sense, you are able to pick up from where you left off more than, all the other teams around the league. So, just hearing the players say stuff like that, I think is really encouraging to hear for sure.
Well, you can hear more tales supported by video evidence with Jessica on KKTV 11. Jessica, good to talk to you. Hope all is well, and I look forward to the next time you and I get a chat.
Thanks, Ryan. We'll see you soon.
Yep, see you soon. That's Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 Sports. Her and Corey rolled in up there at Broncos camp and filling you in on a nightly basis on KKTV 11. One of the things, and it's starting to develop, that I have multiple things here that I just really want to stress. We got a long ways to go before the Broncos open the season, but the lack of a guarantee that Bo Nix will be better than he was a year ago is one of my things. My other thing is Evan Ingram's value, and Jessica talked about it right there. It's not just catching passes. And I think that some people have falsely equated this joker and how much Sean Payton has talked about how he needs someone like this. And then you bring in somebody who is known as a pass catching tight end and Evan Ingram, and you think, well, there's Bo Nix's new number one weapon. They're going to feed him. Not necessarily. Evan Ingram may not be a great fantasy tight end this year because the way that Sean Payton, the most important thing that a joker does is draw the attention of the defense, creating a mismatch problem. But the mismatch problem that Evan Ingram can create may not benefit him. It may benefit Troy Franklin or Marvin Mims or Cortland Sutton or the run game. To Jessica's point about his blocking ability, the joker is a utility player. It's not just this, he could catch a lot of passes on third down. But I just hear and see a lot of people thinking that Evan Ingram is going to be, talked about among the best tight ends this year. And I'm just telling you, compare it to the two guys that are in his division. I don't think he's going to be more prolific than Travis Kelce, and I don't think he's going to be more prolific than Brock Bowers, which is not a problem. Because at this stage in his career, all Travis Kelce does is go out for passes. Like, that's all he does. For the Raiders, Brock Bowers is their best offensive pass catcher. And Evan Ingram might also kind of be that for the Denver Broncos. But my point is, the Broncos are going to ask Evan Ingram to do so many things, and only one of those things is catch passes. Whereas some of the other tight ends that we think of when we talk about the best tight ends in football are really just catching passes. They're great at it, but that's just the only thing that they're doing. It doesn't diminish Evan Ingram's importance to this Broncos team and doesn't make Sean Payton a liar when he talked about how he needs a joker and everything. He needs what Evan Ingram brings, even if it actually ends up benefiting someone else in terms of getting the catch, getting the touchdown, getting sprung for a big gain. Vitally important to the Broncos offense, as that role was in the Saints. But he had a lot of people. It was Darren Sproles, it was Reggie Bush, it was Jimmy Graham. And not all of them had huge usage and put up massive numbers. So I think that's important to keep in mind when gauging the impact or what Evan Ingram's going to do this year. Because the answer to that question of what Evan Ingram is going to do is everything. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Jessica mentioned how Sean Payton is insisting that the Broncos can't just pick up where they left off. Well, how about Air Force? 4-game winning streak to close out the season. Does Troy Calhoun think that the Falcons can pick up where they left off as they open their own camp, getting ready for their first game of the season in about a month's time? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Whether you're a student, teacher, or parent, we could all use a little extra cash as we head back into the school year. That's why we're giving you the chance to win our back to school shopping spree. 5 winners will each take home $1,000 to spend on any of your back to school needs. Go to extrasports1300.com to enter for your chance to win in the back to school shopping spree. Air Force opened up their fall camp yesterday as they prepare for their opener against Bucknell and their final season in this version of the Mount West. They're not going anywhere, but other teams are. So their schedule is going to be quite a bit different after this year, but that's a thing for another day and not any of Troy Calhoun's concerns right now because he still has Boise State on the schedule, still has Colorado State. But the biggest question I think people are asking about Air Force is what do we take from the way they finished the season? 4 straight wins to close out the year. Is that a sign that Air Force is going to get right this year and bounce back this year? Was it just confined to last year and it has no impact on this year? Well, you know where Troy Calhoun stands. He's not a big momentum guy. But when he was asked about the offensive side of the football, especially his offensive line, you get a little insight into that question. Is there something to take from the way Air Force finished last season? I think if you listen to this, the ball coach is telling you, yeah, there is.
You look up front, the progress those guys made towards the last month of the season, having some ball carriers that have tucked a rock, that's Terrence Gist or Dylan Carson or Owen Allen or Cade Frew. And then some of the guys, a guy like Cade Harris, and Brune Fleischman, guys that have all got a ball too.
They are not that young anymore. Both in age, obviously, because time, linear, but in experience. I think if you read between the lines, Troy Calhoun is telling you that there was something to take away from those 4 games that they won at the end of the season. His young team, inexperienced team, especially on the offensive line, hit a tipping point. The light bulbs started to go on where these guys started to understand what was being asked of them and what is required to compete in the Mount West Conference. And the fact that Troy Calhoun rattled off so many names in the aspect of this team that is the most important, which is their ability to run the football as they have been one of the best in the country for years on end, that tells me that you should take something away from the 4-game winning streak to close out last year. Because Troy Calhoun is now getting many players on his offense that aren't deer in the headlights, that aren't doing the first college game, the first home game, first road game, first game going up against an elite team, all this kind of stuff. All those firsts are out of the way. They know what to expect. They know what is required. And I think he's telling you there that he feels pretty good about his offense's ability to run the football. And you look at this team, they have continuity on the offensive line, but more than, a Cade Harris or some of these guys that run the ball in a different way, you're going to find this out. They are absolutely stacked at the fullback position. Absolutely stacked. And that's where it all begins for them running the football. They have no shortage of guys who can, as he said, tuck the rock. They are deep at arguably the most important position in the Air Force offense. Now, the most important position in most everybody else's offense is quarterback, and there is a question around that. And people, as you might expect, and if you're a Broncos fan, you've gone through this, you may have your favorite in a quarterback competition, but not knowing who the starter is can be a little unnerving for the fan base. It's not for Troy Calhoun.
No, not at all. I mean, apprehension doesn't do you any good. In fact, if anything, the joy of being able to get to work with these guys, to see some differences, some improvements that they've made, even just from the spring and the maturity that's involved there. That's a fun part of coaching.
Mike Thiessen, the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, also spoke to that idea that maybe some people who root for the Falcons are a little uneasy because they don't know who the quarterback is. And the guy who heads up that position group, like his head coach, not overly worried.
I do feel confident in our room. Like I like the guys we're coaching. There's a lot of different talent in that room. There's some guys that can run. There's some guys that can throw it. There's guys that have been in our system for a little bit, and there's some younger guys that are talented. There's a big 245-pound guy, that we'll find a way to use, certain ways. So we're excited about doing all that, and we'll see where these first 3 weeks go. Obviously, we're going to have to make a decision, at some point to get in a rhythm with some things, but we've got 3 weeks to figure that out.
Now, if you are reading up on the Falcons and a lot of these national Athlon Sports, ESPN, any national outlet when it comes to college football, one name as far as the quarterback position keeps coming up, and it's Josh Johnson. I am going to tell you, since it is college football, I'll pull the Lee Corso line. Not so fast, my friend. A lot of national outlets are making this out to be it's going to be Josh Johnson as the quarterback. I'm not saying he won't be, but I'm saying it is certainly not a fait accompli, and you hear both Troy Calhoun and Mike Thiessen kind of telling you the same thing. It is an open competition. And one guy I would keep my eye on is a very easy guy to keep your eye on, and he's the, quote, 245-pound quarterback they have in that room. Now, it's an open competition. Somebody may catch fire, and that may be Josh Johnson, but they have a legitimate competition, and I see so many outlets that have one name put at quarterback. Pump the brakes on that. So that will be the big story, obviously, leading up to that Bucknell game. And we know this, with Air Force, but also with college sports, with college football in particular. You have the schedule sets up, you have Bucknell. With all due respect to the fine folks from Bucknell University, there is a reason why they are the first team on Air Force's schedule. I'll just leave it at that. They have a bye week right after that. I wouldn't be shocked if this competition is not decided until the Falcons' second game. I would actually put it this way. Week 1 starter, week 2 starter for Air Force might be different regardless of what happens week 1. And I think, for me personally, I'm more interested to see who starts that second game than who starts game one, because I think the Air Force has a good opportunity here to extend their competition into the Bucknell game and give live game reps to multiple quarterbacks and throw that into the evaluation for then when things pick up after the bye week. About a month away. Less than that, right? Less than a month away. Air Force kicks off the season at Falcon Stadium against Bucknell. Coming up next, we'll get into the three stories that are driving the show. One of the more active trade deadlines I can recall for the Colorado Rockies. I think I would call that progress. That and the other big stories of the day coming up next. Hello there. Welcome in on this Thursday. Glad to have you. Whether you're listening to the show on air, online, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and Wellbeing for All, or whether you're watching the show on our social media platforms, I certainly do appreciate it. If you'd like to take your participation to the next level, you could text or call in your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Coming up, a former teammate of Nikola Jokic confirms every Nuggets fan's worst fear, that Nikola Jokic does not care as much as you do. I'll let you decide how much you believe this former teammate, but in the meantime, let's hit the three stories that are driving the show. All right, story number one. Not really a story, and that is a good thing because Dre Greenlaw today had to leave Broncos practice with a lower body injury. Was this hockey? But Sean Payton says he'll be all right. It was unrelated to the quad issues that he had during the offseason. But given Dre Greenlaw and how much I have talked about him in recent days, how important he's going to be to the Broncos defense, there's a little bit of worry when he leaves practice because of an injury, but nothing to worry about. And I wish I could sit here and say that that will be the last injury scare Dre Greenlaw will have, but we're not even a real week into training camp, and he's already had two since last season ended. This is part of this, and it's him and it's Hufanga both. Like, part of the reason they're no longer 49ers is the 49ers couldn't rely on them to stay on the field last year. And they need guys that could stay on the field because now they have to pay Brock Purdy a ton of money. But it's going to remain a conversation with Dre Greenlaw, especially his health. Anytime he tweaks something or rolls something, there will be a little bit of worry because of his history. But today, no need to worry. Dre Greenlaw is okay. And the Broncos defense can continue dominating the Broncos offense as they have throughout camp, as many a firsthand account has expressed in the last few days, which should not surprise you. First of all, defenses in general are ahead of offenses at this time of year. So that's, I suppose, the good news. The bad news, if you are a Broncos fan, is that while maybe the Broncos will face no better defense than the one they face in practice, they are facing a lot of really good defenses. 7 of the top 11 defenses in the NFL last year are on the Broncos schedule. 2 of those 7 defenses they have to go through twice in the Kansas City Chiefs and Los Angeles Chargers. And you look at the Broncos offense, that has to be the biggest concern. Young, inexperienced, perhaps in some places a lack of talent. If they are getting thrown around by the Broncos defense, they could suffer a similar fate against some of these defenses they will play this upcoming season. Starting, by the way, with the Tennessee Titans. Nobody talks about the Titans defense because their offense is so putrid. It does not mean that the Broncos, I think that the Broncos will lose week 1 because, again, their offense, and they have a rookie quarterback starting his first game. But the Tennessee Titans defense is no joke. And it continues from there. The Jets, the Chiefs twice, the Chargers twice, the Eagles. They have Micah Parsons on the schedule this year. Like, it's just more of a reason why, if the Broncos are going to get to where they were last year, it has to be the defense. There's a reasonable expectation that the offense is going to take a little bit of a step back. And Bo Nix is going to do the same thing. But conversely, the Broncos defense will also have a very similar experience to what they're having in practice right now, because they only face 4 of the top 11 offenses from a year ago. So if you're looking for an early sign from training camp about what the Broncos will be, or something that you can kind of get behind and follow a storyline, the fact that the Broncos defense is dominating the Broncos offense, I think both of what that means for each side of the football, I think it's going to hold for much of this season. I think the Broncos defense is going to do that kind of stuff to a lot of teams this year. And I think that a lot of defenses are going to have success against the Broncos offense. So they can say iron sharpens iron all they want. Sometimes one piece of iron just flattens another one, right? The blacksmith, he takes one piece of iron, sets it on the anvil. The other thing is a hammer, and the hammer flattens the other piece of iron. That's what's going on with the Broncos right now at training camp. And it is not surprising to me one bit. Nor is our second story. The idea that something involving LeBron James could turn out to be just one big tease and attention getter. The much talked about Instagram post from Nikola Jokic's European agent sitting on a boat with Maverick Carter and LeBron James, saying the summer of 2025 is a great time to lay big plans for the fall of 2026, leading some to believe, could LeBron be eyeing a move to the Denver Nuggets? Nope. It's to put a little bit of hype and intrigue around what we have found out today is a basketball league you will never watch. It is a European basketball league that will be in some way part and parcel with what the NBA is trying to do overseas. Think about for those of you who are WNBA fans, WNBA and Unrivaled. That kind of a system where NBA players have a financial stake in this other league. That is what is being discussed. Those are the big plans for the fall of 2026. So it is not surprising in the end that a post involving LeBron James is a big fat nothing burger, because all of his stuff he wore, and it's all very intentional, by the way. It's all very intentional. What did he do the other day? He posted a picture of himself wearing a hat that said "Welcome Home" on it. I don't know what he does is trolling per se, but it's like in that same neighborhood. I'll actually put it this way. LeBron James posts on Instagram for the same reason all those pretty people post on Instagram, men and women, to get attention, to get likes, to be talked about, to be discussed. That is what LeBron James uses his Instagram account for. Just like all those Instagram models that are out there. They're just looking for attention. They're not actually bringing any value to the table. There's nothing to read into. But that's what he does. I should have known. I should have known. Why am I blaming you? You had nothing to do with this. I should have known that had nothing. And I had an inkling like this is not, they're not telegraphing him going to the Nuggets a year early. So something else had to be afoot. I didn't know it was any European league that I wouldn't care at all about, but that's what it turned out to be. And it could mean that Nikola Jokic is a part of this too. But he's a little bit tied up right now. And if he looks more forward to racing his horses than he does playing NBA basketball, he sure as heck is not going to leave his horses to go sit on a boat with LeBron James and talk about a secondary European basketball league. That's why he has representation. Story number 3 today. I think it's progress from the Colorado Rockies. I do. And this is not hope springing eternal. This is not brighter days are ahead. But the Colorado Rockies today at the trade deadline did something that really they should have been doing this whole time. And in fact, it's a referendum on that organization that this is such a shock. And this is such a nice change of pace. They have made multiple trades at the trade deadline, taking players that are of value now and trading them for players that will not be with the Rockies for a while because they're going to be garbage for a while. Not the players, but the Rockies. So they make the Ryan McMahon trade. By the way, what did I say about Ryan McMahon in Yankee Stadium? Have you seen how he's performed? Not surprised there. They make a move yesterday, trading Tyler Kinley, one of their relievers, to the Braves for a prospect. Today, they are helping the Yankees, who the Yankees today just loaded up on bullpen arms. There was an arms race today in Major League Baseball at the trade deadline, and it had to do with bullpen arms. But they made a trade, trading Jake Bird. Maybe you've heard that Jake Bird got traded. Cue Peter Griffin. They traded Jake Bird to the Yankees for 2 prospects. One of them is named Rock Riggio. So already a win of a trade. Upgrading from Jake Bird to Rock Riggio. And they also got a young reliever in the deal as well. And his last name is Shields. And I just had it, Ben Shields. Wait. Oh, that was Ben Sheets. I was like, wait a minute. Ben Shields. Now, Ben Shields is nothing to write home about. He will now be the Rockies' 27th ranked prospect. But you look at what the Rockies have done this season in the trades that they have made. Griffin Herring, one of the pitchers, we don't know whether it be a starter or reliever when he gets to major leagues, but one of the pitchers they got from the Yankees the other day for Ryan McMahon, Griffin Herring, is now their 5th best prospect, according to MLB.com. Rock Riggio is now their 11th best prospect. And what I am getting, Josh Gross, the other reliever they got for Ryan McMahon, is now inside the top 20 best prospects that the Rockies have. So the Rockies are replenishing a barren farm system. Ironically, from the Yankees, which for years those roles have been reversed, that the Yankees have no prospects to offer, and apparently now they do, and now that they did, they traded all of them away. The Yankees have no more farm system. It's like the good old days with George Steinbrenner. But the Rockies made 3 moves in the last week, which I think is more moves than they have made in the last 3 years combined. Maybe, just maybe, they're starting to realize that they got to start operating like a normal baseball team. in order to start winning games. Now, this does not mean they are getting anywhere with these guys. They could ruin every single one of them. I am not trying to paint a rosy picture. I'm just saying the stroke of competency, the ability to do something that so many organizations we take for granted that do every offseason. Oh, we suck. We're going to trade our major league players for prospects. It's a normal thing. And why it escaped the Rockies that is something you do is inherently the Rockies' experience. But what they have done over the last week is move out 3 guys that will never be a part of the next halfway decent Rockies team and get young players that maybe can be. And that's all they can do. And it's all we've been asking them to do since they traded Nolan Arenado. How many years has it been? And they haven't done it. And they're doing it now. I'm not giving credit. What I'm doing right now is just conveying my level of shock that the Rockies participated in this yearly ritual of trading major league players for non-major league players in order to look into the horizon. And I said this when they made the Ryan McMahon deal. I can't help but think that Ethan Holiday has something to do with this. Like maybe Ethan Holiday has shocked their system. And to a lesser extent, Charlie Condon, where they're like, wait a minute. We have some guys that even we can't maybe screw up. Maybe we should start planning for something like the arrival of Ethan Holiday. It's what normal teams do all the time, but the Rockies are just getting around to it now. So the trade today, Jake Bird being traded to the New York Yankees. And the Rockies will get back 2 minor leaguers, one of which, Rock Riggio, is now one of their 11 best prospects. Not going to say the Rockies are healing, but it's a notable day. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, one former Nikola Jokic teammate says, yeah, he doesn't care about basketball. Why we have become so fixated on how much athletes care. Because there's another example of a GOAT talking about Scotty Scheffler and where his priorities lie. That conversation is next on Extra Sports 1300. Tomorrow night, Widener Field is the place to be as the Switchbacks host Lexington SC for Next Generation Night, presented by Amentum, where they'll be honoring the future of our community and the next wave of Switchbacks fans. It's kids. That's the next generation. Kickoff at 7 o'clock. After the match, stick around for fireworks. And I have another 4-pack of tickets to tomorrow night's match. If you would like to go, be the 13th texter to text Switchbacks in your name to 719-247. 1313. So you remember the viral video that was going around of Nikola Jokic celebrating with his horse who won a race, and many people were comparing that to how he was celebrating an NBA championship and saying Nikola Jokic really doesn't care about basketball and laughing. And I have noticed that as time has gone on, this has become more of a sore spot for Nuggets fans. Like now there is, I guess, a pocket within the Nuggets fan base that gets very offended at this notion. Right? You know that there's not a lot more that Nikola Jokic can give this team. Although, as I say that, he developed a 3-point shot this year. So I guess I shouldn't say that. But, like, this guy is hardly the issue with this team. He's done so much for the team, and yet the mere joke that Nikola Jokic doesn't care about basketball as much as he does horses infuriates people. And this clip from DeMarcus Cousins is not going to help either.
When I was with Denver, our lockers were next to each other, and I don't remember who at the time had signed an extension, but I'm like, such and such signed it for his money. I'm like, man, yours gonna be crazy. He was like, cuz I honestly think I might retire after this contract. I said, leave $300 million on the table. I said, watch your mind, man. Like, I said, sign the contract and just get fat at worst. Like, but don't pass up on the $300 million, bro. Like,
no, you can't do that.
Nah, don't do that. He like, cuz I just want to go lay in my I believe he called it like a valley or something like that. I just want to lay out there with my horses. I'm like, yo, them horses gonna be there, bro. Go get
your 3.
You tripping. Like, you can get more horses. Go get the 300, bro.
So that was from the Straight Game podcast, lending more credence to the idea that Nikola Jokic doesn't care as much about basketball. Here's the thing. I think this is important. DeMarcus Cousins played with Nikola Jokic in the 2020-2021 season. The 2 years prior, he was 2021, 2022. I always get those mixed up. But right before that, right before DeMarcus Cousins was a Denver Nugget, the last couple of seasons before they picked him up, 2021, 2020. Where most every NBA player was miserable. Then the following year was the year that the Nuggets get the gut punch, which is Jamal Murray ripping his ACL at Golden State and Suns in 4. Right? So Nikola Jokic had gone through 2 less than enjoyable seasons. And what I will say for Nikola Jokic, setting aside his care level, the guy likes to have fun. And those 2 seasons, for different reasons, were not very fun. So was DeMarcus Cousins hitting him at a time where maybe the morale was a little bit down? And that was the middle of a season where Jamal Murray didn't end up playing at all. Right? And the Nuggets kind of knew what their fate was going to be if they did not have Jamal Murray going into those playoffs. So I think DeMarcus Cousins was catching him at the perfect time for Nikola Jokic to have his morale down a little bit. But also here too, I think two things can be true. I think what DeMarcus Cousins is saying can be true. That actually happened. But also Nikola Jokic could have started to care more. And I'll tell you the moment in time in which I think Nikola Jokic's give a care meter went up. He won a title. And I know people flash to the video and he doesn't look super excited. Go to the parade. That's the video people should be putting out. Remember when he said he loved being on parade? Nikola Jokic had fun. Maybe he didn't emote enough for some people, but there's no doubt that winning a title was fun for him. And I think that he got bit by that bug, so to speak. And how could you say that the guy who was yelling on the sideline to his team, that now, famous shot of him after Michael Malone got fired and he's yelling at his teammates. How could you say that that guy doesn't care? So I think DeMarcus Cousins may have caught Nikola Jokic at a time where he was contemplating that. I think that Nikola Jokic, that feeling from Nikola Jokic is no longer there. Now, he's still a guy that likes to have a good time. So the Nuggets got to keep winning or he'll lose interest. And he is somebody that likes to have fun, like partying. Part of the reason why he loved the parade was it was a party. Part of the reason why he loves, he loves racing horses, but the atmosphere is kind of a party. If you read Mike Singer's book on Nikola Jokic, he's like Hot Rod, Andy Samberg. I'm Nikola Jokic, and I like to party. I think he has to be. You have to, stimulate Nikola Jokic's brain a little bit, right? This stuff, to make another movie reference, he's like Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting. You know how easy this is for me? So you have to give him something that keeps him engaged. And chasing a championship, playing for a championship, I think does that. I think playing with players, and this is where Cam Johnson enters the conversation, that really fit him and can really be an extension of Nikola Jokic's brain. I think that's going to be really good for him. But yeah, the guy likes to get away at the end of the season. And maybe he cares about racing horses. I would actually say he cares about winning a title the right amount. But he probably cares about racing horses more than most people can fathom. That I can fathom. I don't get it. But clearly he loves it. So I think if anything, look at maybe his unhealthy obsession with racing horses as opposed to a lack of interest in his day job. He cares about his day job. But here's the bigger conversation. Why does it matter as much as it does? Here's another one to bring into it. Tom Brady has a newsletter, apparently. Subscribe now to the Tom Brady newsletter. But he has a newsletter, and he reacted to Scotty Scheffler's quote that he had before the Open Championship, where he basically said the joy of winning hits him for a little bit, and then it goes away, and then it's life as usual, and he's far more concerned with how good of a father and a husband he is than a golfer. And Tom Brady saying Scotty said he'd rather be a better father and husband than a good golfer. My question is, why are those two mutually exclusive? Sure, they're different blocks on the pyramid, but they're part of the same pyramid. They're connected. we have this obsession, and I get it. There's an extreme where you can't not care in order to succeed in professional sports. You can't not care. You got to care a little bit. So when guys show no, like a Paxton Lynch level of dedication and give a care when it comes to their professional career, that's concerning. But what Scottie Scheffler and Nikola Jokic actually have is a healthy work-life balance. And it is actually something that so many people cannot attain. And I don't want to cast aspersions on Tom Brady, but he hasn't been, obviously he went through, and I don't know the details of it. And again, I'm not trying to cast aspersions because I went through this too, but he's not married anymore. So I think there are people that, as much as they strive for it, they don't actually attain it. And it's actually a credit to Scottie Scheffler and Nikola Jokic that they're able to succeed at such a high level and still have their personal lives and not let that slip at all. And Nikola Jokic is a huge family man. His brothers, very connected to his brothers, his wife. Like, instead of these athletes being joked about or being at some level criticized, they should actually be held up as the standard. Like, you can be a great husband and a father and be able to golf like Scottie Scheffler. The answer is no, we can't do that. But just the idea of Scottie Scheffler can put in the work that it takes to be at the top of his game while also being a great husband and a great father. And Nikola Jokic can not only put in the work, because he's put in the work to be a great basketball player, the best in the world, and he still is able to have fun, and he's still able to have other hobbies, and apparently he's successful at that, and be a good brother, a good father, and a good husband. But we get so fixated on that you don't care as much as we do. With Scottie Scheffler and Nikola Jokic, like, if they don't care, and this was kind of part of DeMarcus Cousins' point, like, what's scary is that he perceives that Nikola Jokic doesn't care as much as a lot of guys. And how scary would it be if he had Michael Jordan's drive? I actually don't think that he would be better if he had Michael Jordan's or Kobe Bryant's mentality. I think part of what makes Nikola Jokic is the fact that he can get away. The fact that winning doesn't consume him all the time. That he can have his family around him constantly and still be successful. I actually think if he was as maniacal as some of these other athletes, he may not be as good. I think it's the balance that he struck that has helped him be successful. So I get what Tom Brady is saying. They shouldn't be mutually exclusive, but so often one comes at the expense of another. And the laundry list is wrong and is long. And certainly Tom Brady is incredibly successful. Incredibly. And he should be admired for many a reason for what he has accomplished in his life. I'm not putting down Tom Brady at all, but I'm just saying, hasn't all of this cost him something? So yeah, in an ideal world, you're able to do it all, but so many people can't. And I think the key is finding the right balance, that it actually, one does help you with the other. And I think that's what Tom Brady's better point is, and the point he's trying to make. But it just comes across as like, oh, I can balance it and Scottie Scheffler can't. And I don't think that's the case at all. I get it can be maddening to see someone like Nikola Jokic and Scotty Scheffler and be like, to heck with you in your work-life balance. I gotta grind 12 hours a day to climb up my corporate ladder. Where I got to sacrifice my job. I got to be okay with not climbing the ladder so I can be a better uh, husband or a wife or a better mother or a father. Like I get some of that anger, but they at the end, both of these athletes should be kind of held up as like, man, goals. I want to be like that guy. But we care so much about how much these athletes care. And when they don't care a little bit less than we think they should, people go crazy. Who cares if Nikola Jokic? I mean, and I'm sure Nikola Jokic probably had a few beverages, which brings the emotions out. Like, so let's not, it's not an affront to the Denver Nuggets that he's hugging his horse. And some people are taking it that way. It's so weird. Speaking of being dedicated to your craft, why the new and improved Luka Doncic was a foregone conclusion when the Mavericks did what they did. Congratulations to David, who won the 4-pack of tickets to see the Switchbacks take on Lexington tomorrow night at Widener Field. This coming down, want to confirm, because you never know with the internet these days. Yes, multiple outlets reporting within the last hour that Terry McLaurin of the Commanders has requested a trade. Why this has gotten to this point is beyond me. What is the issue with the Commanders? How can they not see what is so abundantly clear to you and I? They have to sign this guy. And I'm not saying that they're going to fulfill his wishes and trade him, but just the point that he's pulling another tactic out here to try and get a deal done. It's like, why is it even here? It should be a huge no-brainer. You have a superstar in the making at the quarterback position, and his best target in the pass game is due for a contract, and you're dragging your feet. So he tried to go public and voice his displeasure while, by the way, saying that he doesn't want to go anywhere else. He was holding out. Then he reported, yes, to avoid getting fined. Same reason Trey Hendrickson is at Bengals camp right now. But he shows up, and now he's like, it's still not moving along. Well, now I'm going to do this thing. Now it's not the nuclear option. That's if the guy's willing to hold out come week 1. But I don't understand. I don't understand why this is a difficult decision for Washington and why it's gotten to this point. But now Terry McLaurin is requesting a trade. And we'll have more on that tomorrow, obviously. And just to give you a preview of my thoughts on the subject, yes, 1,000 times yes, the Denver Broncos should try to trade for Terry McLaurin. Trade Cortland Sutton for Terry McLaurin. Sign and trade deal. That is also a no-brainer. But DP, Eisen, Rome, they'll be all over this thing tomorrow, and we'll see what comes of this. But from afar, I get it. I'm in Colorado Springs. They're in Washington, D.C. I don't get it. I don't get why it's come to this. But I do understand why Luka Doncic has quite the revenge bod going on. He was on Good Morning America or something today. I don't know. I don't watch the daytime shows. I don't watch the late night shows. I don't watch the daytime shows. But he's doing this world tour, and he's on the cover of Men's Health, and he looks great. Looks great. But I told you, when the Mavericks made the trade, setting aside whether they got equal value in return, which they didn't, setting aside the kind of hypocrisy of being worried about the availability of Luka Doncic moving forward, and the centerpiece of the deal is getting Anthony Davis back in return. Like, setting aside all of that, what I said when Luka got traded to the Lakers was what the Mavericks were guaranteeing with this trade was that the Luka that they were looking to have in Dallas was going to appear in LA. What is happening right now with Luka Doncic, I knew it was coming. I knew back the day that the trade got made, I'm like, Luka is absolutely going to get into shape. He 100% is. It was always going to happen. And it was the shock of the trade and the perceived disrespect that was going to ignite that fire within Luka Doncic to get in shape. And as time goes on, the Mavericks aren't right. Okay? They didn't get equal value. They could have stuck it out for longer. Luka's better than anybody that they have on their roster. Like, I'm not saying at all that Nico Harrison was right. But the more time goes on, the more some things come up and you're like, I understand why there was angst with the Mavericks organization. And to an extent, it's working out because Adam Silver gave Nico Harrison a big fat kiss on the lips in the form of Cooper Flag. So that is so not any credit that you give. The fact that Nico Harrison got up there and said, now you can see the vision. Like, dude, read the room. You are still an idiot for trading Luka. And I do think that Luka is going to win a title before the Mavericks will. But you look at it and you're like, maybe the only way Luka was ever going to get into the shape that he is in now is if the Dallas Mavericks traded him. The message wasn't getting through. But with that being said, and another reason why the Mavericks are not right, and will never be proven right, is that Luka Doncic, 30 pounds overweight and smoking a heater on the basketball court, is still better than anybody they have on their roster, including Cooper Flag. But this version of Luka, what we're seeing now, making the rounds and on Men's Health covers and everything like that, it was only possible because of the Dallas Mavericks trade. So maybe in some perverse way, Luka Doncic owes the Mavericks a debt of gratitude. Maybe at his Hall of Fame speech, he can thank Nico Harrison for at least that. But I knew it was going to happen. I said it on the show the first day after the Luka trade. I said what the Mavericks are guaranteeing is the player that they wanted Luka to be will emerge in LA 100%. Because of what they did to him. Disrespecting him, trading him, talking trash about him on the way out, spreading rumors and talking about how worried they were about his weight and basically calling him fat on the way out. I don't have the drop that Jim Rome does, or else I'd play it right there. But this was always going to happen. And maybe the Lakers will benefit from this. I mean, again, if Luka never got into shape, I still think that the Lakers benefited greatly from this. Now, we'll see. Season is long. Don't get to work out as much. You got to save your body a little bit. So I will throw in this little caveat right at the end here. Let's see how Luka is over 82 games. But the skill level is still so insane that even him being overweight, out of shape, whatever the Mavericks want to say he was, he's still one of the 5 best players on planet Earth. I'll do it for the show. Appreciate your patronage. Enjoy your evening. Back tomorrow at 3. And don't forget Switchback Soccer as well tomorrow night here on Extra Sports 1300.